Hi, we're at the Gregorian pub in Bermondsey, and alongside me here is Baroness Claire Fox.
I'm glad to be here, John. So let me just say, as you know, I'm not supporting any particular political party in these local elections, but I'm really delighted. I think it's healthy for democracy that so many new parties have emerged. We've got Reclaim standing as the mayoral candidate, we've got the SDP who are floating around the place, we've got a whole load of independents standing against LTNs, against low traffic neighbourhoods, and then of course we've got Reform UK, and I'm delighted to be here with John Cronin, who is standing for Lambeth Southwark, and he's a Bermondsey lad, and I know that the Bermondsey campaign was really dynamic during the general elections, and the Academy of Ideas offices in Bermondsey, so I'm delighted to be here to support John standing to kick local democracy into some shape.
Thank you very much, Claire. There's a big issue that seems to be affecting all London boroughs at the moment, and that's the low traffic neighbourhood scheme, particularly in Lambeth. How do you feel about the low traffic affecting London?
So I think this has been one of the major scandals of lockdown, which is that local councils have taken, in a completely opportunistic way, taken advantage of the fact that people are locked in their houses to close down roads. I mean, just arbitrarily have put up these big flower pots, barriers, and said you can't drive down here. And the worst thing is they try and pretend that this is good for local people, but it's actually something that they've decided what's good for local people, because local people are up in arms and they didn't ask local people, and there's no accountability for it at all. The thing that's really frustrating is that it just seems to me that they're waging war against car drivers and normal people, because they suggest, by the way, that car drivers are all these kind of rich people with cars and it's poor people without. Absolute nonsense. Most of the people involved in the anti-LTN campaigns are women, by the way. They need their cars to,
of course, some people haven't got a choice.
Exactly, and you need it. And look, you have worked throughout this lockdown period. You're a frontline worker. You're one of the people who represents working class politics, who understands what ordinary people's lives are like. And that's what it seems to me all the anti-LTN campaigners are like. They represent ordinary people, and the councillors haven't got a clue. They're kind of into this cycling heaven, but they don't care that what they've done is they've made traffic queues on roads that are not blocked off, and left those roads that are blocked off, left lots of people isolated who can't drive to their own front door.
How do you feel about the idea that One Lambeth seem to have about expanding their council, from about 7 councillors to about 22? How do you feel about them expanding that, giving them more of a voice?
Well, I think what's happened is that in a lot of councils now, there's small cliques of people who are making decisions that aren't even accountable to the local council, let alone to the local people who vote for them. So I think this idea that you can open up democracy, expand it, is better. Especially on something as drastic as closing roads down and completely transforming what London is like as a city. This needs the fullest possible debate, so I'm broadly supportive of that.
How do you feel about local business, how they've been treated during the lockdown, and how they how do you think we can help them to recover?
Well, I think, a lot of people supported this lockdown, no doubt about that. A lot of people were frightened. A lot of people also were exhibiting social solidarity, and they didn't want to harm people. They didn't want the virus to spread. We understand all that. But even if you supported lockdown, I think now, whether you're following the data rather than the dates, you have to say the data would indicate that this is no longer even at pandemic levels. It's a virus that's on the wane, and that's fantastic. And we have the vaccines, and that's fantastic. So of course what we want to see from politicians is the opening up as quick as possible. Because what they don't seem to realise is the closure of society for safety reasons.
It's really hurting businesses.
Absolutely. Hospitality has been very badly damaged. Local businesses are utterly struggling. A lot of them won't ever open again. but people like you had to put your life on the line when you were going out to work. You didn't have any choice, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And actually, what we therefore need are courageous local politicians who say, after a year of fear, some of it justified, some of it, let's be honest, hyped up and people being overly scared when they shouldn't have been. We need people who are courageous enough to know that they'll go out and argue for opening up. Now, as you've never been closed down, I know that you're the kind of guy who's not going to be worried about opening up.
That's right. I'm all for people, be it with, aspirations, want to better themselves. The poor people, when it happened, that at the timing they become self-employed, they start up their own business, and they seem to get no support from the government.
That was so awful, wasn't it?
Lockdown.
I'm glad you've mentioned that. That's a really important point because I think that there's a whole group, there's millions of people who've suffered, who've been ignored. So there's all this kind of thing about, well, lots of people are on furlough. I mean, broadly speaking, I'm glad that they got some compensation because it wasn't their fault. Even though I think furlough isn't the solution. But like you say, there are millions of small businesses, people who actually showed the initiative to go off on their own, and they've been abandoned completely. So we need to go back to normal, not some new normal. I mean, we can say we want an improved democratic system and we want to change politics for good, and that's great. But what I can't stand is these people who sort of say, oh, now we've realised that we've been in lockdown, it's all really pleasant with no cars on the road. Oh, now we've realised that we should treat London like a village where we can all walk around and say hello to each other. And this is not the London that is thriving economically. How are we going to make any money?
That's right, of course.
My final thing I'd like to say is, John, I think it takes real guts to put yourself forward, put your head above the parapet, and to say that you're prepared to fight. And I know it's a lonely fight, trying to campaign in a pandemic, in a lockdown, for a small new party. Good on you. That's all I can say. You're the kind of leader that we need.
It's been pretty full on. I've been doing a day's work through all this and just carrying on campaigning. So it's been.
That's what real politicians are.
Yeah, exactly.
They're the kind of politicians we need.
Exactly.
Working people who are prepared to stick their head above the parapet.
Of course. Thank you.